Okay, we got a little bit ahead. Baruch Hashem, we're up to Yud Aleph, Amen Aleph. We're in the middle of a sugya of, we saw Nidarim are something that do not have what to stand on. We spoke about Shabbos and Chagigah and Me'ilah, which have allusions to, they're like mountains hanging by a seir. And the last thing was what? Let's look back at the Mishnah to get the Lashon down on Yud Amen Aleph. Hadinim, it says that Hadinim va'avodos hatahayros tameos va'arayos yesh lehem al ma sheyismechu. You have on what to be somich ve'hein hein gufei Torah. So the lashon of yesh lehem ma sheyismechu means they're not right there, but you can find support for them. The Gemara doesn't have problems with that. But before, let's begin on the two dots. We're parallel to the Taisus Leinitzrucha. The third Taisus down and go down 2 lines. Mikra mu'at v'halachas merubais. They have a small psukim and many halachos. Tana negoyim v'aylois mikra mu'at v'halachas merubais. Negoyim and aylois, the parsha of Tsaras v'aylois and the din of Tumas Ohel. Mikra mu'at have few psukim v'halachas merubais and many halachos. 1 second, says the Gemara. Negoyim Mikra Mu'it, the guy in Mikra Marubahu, just open up Pashras Tazriya Mitzayra. You have tremendous amount of psukim that deal, in fact, with what? With the Mitzayra. So how can you possibly tell me that there are few psukim that deal with that? So I'm Rav Papa Hachikamai. This is the way you read it. Negoyim Mikra Maruba. It's true. The parsha of Negoyim has many psukim. Halachas mu'atais, but the halachas of Negoyim are not many. Conversely, Oyolais Mikra Mu'it. The halacha of Tumis Oyol has very few psukim. However, halachas merubais, if you ever looked in the Sechta, Oyolais is a tremendously big Masechta. My nafkamina to know the two. So in the Stafkalacha, Milsa, if you have a doubt regarding halachas of Tumah, of Negoyim and Tumas Oyol, Benegoyim Ayin Bekra, since there are many psukim, look in the psukim to ascertain the halacha. B'mistafkala Milsa Oyolais, however, if your suffix that rises in Oyolais where they have few psukim, then Ayin B'masnisa, go look at the oral source. Go look at the Torah Shebal Peh as a source. Dinim says Michtav Ksivi. Let's look at Rashi right away, guys. Go up where it says that when the lines get thin, about 6 lines down. Dinim Ksiva Mefurashim Yafin. What are you telling me that dinim are yesh lehem lismchu? There's many psukim. Umasnisim Ketani. Yet the lashon of the Mishnah was yesh lehem smicha. Mashma she'enim mefurashim. Smicha means that I have what to support something by, but it's not stated explicitly. What are you talking about? The halachas of dinim, of Bezdin, Sanhedrin, are stated explicitly. So, and for the Gemara, we're not speaking about the concept, we're speaking about certain particular dinim. So, for example, the Gemara, in the Shvatim, the Chumash is describing 2 men fighting. Here's the lashon of the pasuk. 2 men are fighting, and they hit a pregnant woman, and a child she miscarries, but nothing happens to the woman. The woman is well. She should punish them, and they should pay beflilim by judges. So if they kill a child, a pregnant woman, the child dies, they go ahead and they pay the judges, and it says they pay money. What happens if the woman does die? The next pasuk says, and if there's an asan, some tragedy happens, they fought and they killed the woman, but they were mechaven to kill each other, but they ended up killing somebody else. Then you have to pay nefesh tachas nefesh. So literally, according to the pasuk, you would think it means you die, you kill him. And the answer is no. Nefesh tachas nefesh also means money. Why? Because it says in that pasuk, v'nosan beflilim, the lashon of nesina, beflilim by judges is a monetary payment, and it says v'nosata nefesh, the same lashon of nesina. So we learn out of Gzeir Shava a monetary payment. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. This is what we mean. We say yeshal mal lismach, but it's not explicitly stated. Such a din. Rabbi Omer says Rabbi Elchid the Rabbi the Tanya Rabbi Omer nefesh tachas nefesh. If the woman dies, you pay a soul for a soul. Mammon, it doesn't mean literally a soul, it means money. You say it means money, but maybe it means namash and nefesh. Nemer nesina lamata. It says regarding Nesin lamata nefesh tachas nefesh. It means v'lashon v'nasa. It says v'nasla. V'nemer nesin lamayla, and it says v'mloyi asayin v'nasan b'flilim. Mala halom. It says nasan b'flilim. Obviously, the judges are making you pay mammon. Afkan, when it says v'nasla nefesh tachas nefesh, it means money. So this is an example of dinim that is what yesham alismach for this din, but it's not stated explicitly. The next din the Mishnah stated was avodas, regarding the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, we're all familiar, or we will be familiar in a second, with the four avodas adam. We've done this quite a bit of time. When it comes to slaughtering a carbon, there are four avodas adam. There's the shchita, the slaughtering of the animal. There's the kabbalah, the receiving of the blood in a klishares. There's three. There's the halacha, bringing it from the spot of the kapala to the spot of the sarika. And four, there's the sarika, the actual sprinkling of the blood. So we have shchita, kabbalah, halacha, and sarika. Now, the one of the three that you can possibly do away with is halacha, is going ahead. Why? If I would go ahead and shech the animal in close proximity to the mizbeach, I would then just need kabbalah, and from the place that I was makabel, received the dam, I would be able to go ahead and sprinkle it on the mizbeach. So you could do away with halacha. So don't make a mistake. We're going to learn how to limud. Halacha, even though it can be done away with, is a full-fledged one of the avodas, and therefore you would require all the halachas of the avodah would apply to it. So, for example, we've been exposed to pigel, the concept of having a machshava of doing something the wrong time or the wrong day, right? Usually it's done in one of the four. So I might think it can't be done in the halacha because you could do it away. Kamashma not. By halacha, you would need what? You would need a kohen. The same way by kabbalah you need a kohen. You don't need a kohen by what? By halacha. The same way an oral would passel, the yoshev would passel. So all the psulim, the avodah that would exist by an avodah that you can't do away with, such as the kabbalah, would exist with the halacha. That's what it means that yesham al lismech. It's not stated openly, but it's learned from a limud. But let's see the limud inside. Avodos michtav ksivi. Fred the Gemara. Look at Parshas Vayikra and Sav. You have plenty of avodos mentioned there. So it's look like nitzcha el lehalachas dam. I need it for the unique din of halachas dam, bringing the dam over, which we possibly could go ahead and do away with. The Tanya, the grivu. The pasuk says. Let me have a psukim over here. The pasuk says. The shochet has been a buckle from Hashem. They should shech the animal, the oila. The krivu b'nei Aaron kahanim. Now it says the krivu, and they should be close. The krivu, guys, is mashma the halacha of transporting the krivu, but it's not. First you shech, and then the krivu you're makabel. So we're using kabbalah, the lashon of halacha of the hikriv, to mean receive. It says the hikrivu zu kabbalah sadam. The hikrivu, to transport, to bring close, zu kabbalah sadam. That refers to the receiving of the blood. The afke rachmana b'lashon halacha. The Torah uses the hikrivu, the kabbalah to the lashon of halacha. The chsiv the hikriv hakoyin es hakol, that the koyin should go ahead and bring the evarim closer, the hiktar mizbecha, and burn them on mizbeach. V'amamar zu alechas evarim lekevesh. So you see that the hikriv means is a lashon of halacha. So the question is, why did the Torah act when it says the shachat koyin, the koyin should shech as ben abakar lefnei Hashem, the hikrivu b'nei Aaron, they should be close. Why do we use the lashon of a hikriv, a lashon of halacha, when it meant kabbalah? The memra, the halacha loisafke mechlal kabbalah, to say that the halacha, which you could do away with ostensibly, does not leave the kabbalah, which you can't do away with. If you would shech an animal and the blood goes on the floor without a kabbalah, you can't use it. It has to be received in the kli. So it's an integral part of the avodah. You might think the halacha, since you could do away with, is not an integral part of the avodah. Therefore, the Torah uses the lashon of a hikriv of halacha to define kabbalah, to say that no, that even though you could do away with it, it's the same. Let's just do that Rashi. Do the Rashi like safki mechal kabbalah. It does not leave mechal kabbalah, says Rashi. L'chol devareha, for all its halachas. V'afagav shehi avoida she'ef shelavatla, even though halacha is an avoida that you possibly could do away with. Shin matzah shoichet b'tzad mizbeach. If you want, you could shech the animal at the side of mizbeach. V'zoyrik, and sprinkle there without what? Moving. Heichid le'botla avoida, where you're not mevatel avoida, meaning where you shecht away from mizbeach and you acquire the halacha, It has all the halachas of an avodah. So, for example, you can create pigel with the wrong machshava, wrong thought. It needs a koyin, even though shchita is kosher bizarre, Kabbalah isn't, nor is halacha. Big day kahuna. If you're mechusar begadim, would pass the avodah. Upoisel ba'oinen, an oinen person is relative died that day before the kfura can't do the avodah. The yoshev, sitting you can't do it. Uva oral or a non-circumcised kohen cannot do it. So all the halachas that Rashi gives you a litany of the halachas that reply to an avodah would apply to halacha. That is a yesh ma'alismichu. Certainly is not stated in the Torah. It's ascertained by what? By looking at what the lashon of what the hikri used by Kabbalah. Very geschmack. Tahairos. We said tahairos, right? We said tahairos. What is tahairos? Michda Kasivi says the Gemara tahairos are in fact what they're written. We're on Yud Aleph Amid Beis. Yud Aleph Amid Beis. We're 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Amid Aleph. Yud Aleph Amid Aleph. We're 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. About 14 lines up. We said that tahairos yesham al lismach. Tahairos you have what to be saimach on. Again, the same question. Michdav Ksivi. You can look again. There's tremendous parshas that deal with the halachas of tahairos. So in the nitzcha shir mikvah, you need it for the shir of the mikvah. Now we know a mikvah is 40 sa. Where do you know it from? The following allusion. The Tanya. It says v'rochatz b'mayim. It says v'rochatz b'mayim in water. Now not b'mayim, b'mayim. And it says ma. It means it's specific. B'mei mikvah es kol b'sarai. He should wash b'mayim b'mei mikvah es kol b'sarai. What does that mean? Mayim shakol gufoy oila behen. It has to be a volume of water that your whole body could be immersed in. The kamehain, what exactly is that? It's amma al amma beroim shalosh. 1 amma long, 1 amma wide, and 3 ammas high. 1 amma long, 1 amma wide, and 3 ammas high. The shiru chachamim and the chachamim have ascertained that amount is mei mikvah is abayim sa is 40 sa. The classic, we all know 40 sa is the amount of a mikvah. If you're missing even a little bit, if you're a quart short, it cannot go ahead and be mitaher. Yet, if you have the right amount, there's no tumah that it can't take off. Right? I mean, basically every tumah needs the mikvah. If it's tumah sheretz, it's herav shemesh. You touch something when you get to a sheretz, one of the 8 shrutzim that I mentioned in Shmini and a re'eh. If you touch them, your tameh, go to the mikvah. If you see keri, go to the mikvah. If you touch a mace, you have to go ahead wide and 3 and 7 go to the mikvah and paraduma. There's always the bottom line is. There's no tyra that doesn't end in the mikvah. Neither mikvah. You end in the mikvah, right? 40 saw, that is alluded to. That is I'm alismach from the pasuk of rochas b'mayim. It's called b'sarai, but it's not stated outright. So that's what it means. The Mishnah yesh amal lismach. Next, Timeos. We said Tahiris and Timeos. What's Timeos? Michtav ksivi. The pashas of Tum is rated like so. We need it for the shear of a lentil. Okay, but I'll foreshadow the Gemara. I give you the psukim. There are 8 shrutzim that create tumah, right? The 8 shrutzim that create tumah. The pasuk says, "Elu atameim lachem b'chol hasheretz kol anagei behem." Anyone touches in them, b'moisam in their death, yitmu ara orev. Okay, and it gives the achbar a lot. It gives a whole list of what they are. Certainly, mice are in mice are certainly rodents are sheretz. So now it says anyone who touches bohem in them is mashma. You would have to touch a whole mouse because it says bohem. Yet the next pasuk says the chol asher yipol olav, anything that falls olav mayhem from them in moisam yitma. This is the pasha of Thomas Klicheres, and it falls. Now it's mashma. It falls mayhem, even part of them. One pasuk says bohem, all of them. The other one says mayhem, part of them. How do we go ahead and reconcile the behem and the mayhem? And this is going to be the halacha of yesh amal lismach. Let's see inside. So the Gemara Timeos michtav ksiva leinitzach elchid atsha. I need it for what? For a lentil bean. Min hasheretz. From one of the shmona shrutzim. If one of the shmona shrutzim, guys, the shear of tumah is not a kazayas. It's not a beitza. It is a lentil bean. It's the size of bichid atsha. It's a tiny piece. The loik siva. This is not written at all, and this is the allusion to when we say yesham alisma. The Tanya, bohem. Again, the pasuk said, "Ela tameim lachem B'chol hasheretz hashoretz kol hanegeya bohem. Anyone who touches in them. So yachol b'kulan. Since I would think you have to touch all of them. Tamad loymar. It says b'chol asher yipol olav mehem. It says mehem. Guys, mem means part of miktsas. Yachol b'miktsasan. I might think part of it. Tamad loymar behem. So it seems to be counterintuitive. You're going back and forth. You're saying it's either mehem or you're saying it's bohem. What is it? So haketzad ad sheyagia b'miktsasai shehu kikulai. You won't be tamei until you touch part of it that's equal to all of it. Shiru chachamim b'chida'atsha. The chachamim therefore gave the shear of tumesheretz the size of a b'chida'atsha, a lentil. Shekein chaymet. A chaymet is a mole, I think. It's b'chilasai. When it's born, b'chida'atsha. It's the size of a lentil. So what does that mean? Guys, mehem, part of them, that's equal to all of them. Since there's a sheretz that begins all of it, it's that size of a ka'adsha. When it's a full-fledged sheretz, if you touched part that's equal to the beginning of that chomet, it's what it is, your tummy. Rabbi Yossi ben Yehuda kizan of halta'a, the shear of a ka'adsha is like the tail of a lizard. Bottom line is, this that you don't have a full-fledged, but yesh lismach. So again, le'inyan, we went through just to reiterate, we went through the dinim. We said that the din, the yesh lismach, was the din of paying mammon for killing a woman that was pregnant and you didn't mean to kill her. You go ahead and you pay money. The din of avoda, that the lashon of the hikr of Kabbalah is used in lashon of halacha, that even though you could do away with halacha, it's a full-fledged avoda similar to Kabbalah, which we subject to all the halachas of a kayin. The din of Tyrus was the shear of the mikvah, right? Ama alama baroim shalosh amos, and the shear of Tameos now we're saying is the shear of the atsha of a sheretz. Okay. Finally, the last din was arayos, and meaning there's yeshal malismach in the parsha of arayos. Yeshal alismach in the parsha of arayos. We're saying that what to be. Okay. I'm going to give you the Gemara outside, guys. This is a very introduction to the second half of Masechta Yevamis. You can see? Yes, guys, you can see this? Okay, good.
Yes.
Now, what does this pasuk say? Pasuk Yitzayin. Well, let's try to get it up a little bit. Ervas Isha Ubita, the erva of a woman and her daughter, like Segala, you should not reveal as Baspina, the daughter of her son, there's Baspita, and the daughter of her daughter, like Sikach, you should not take Legalis Ervasa. So let's see, there's a woman, it's not your wife, she has a Baspina, that's Baspita. She has a granddaughter. You have a grand stepdaughter, either through her son or her daughter. There's a din of erva by there. Just if Pasha continues, I just want to. This is important. Shara heina zimahi. Shara heina zimahi. So now we have a pasuk that says a woman that you were married to. You were married to this woman. She has a step granddaughter, right? There's an issue of erva by that granddaughter. Now, let's go to pasuk Yud. Ervas bas bincha, the erva of your granddaughter, or bas bitcha, or your granddaughter, the granddaughter of your son, or daughter, so this, what is this speaking about? If you know from pasuk Yud Zayin, a stepson's daughter is asa, you have to tell me that your own granddaughter is asa. That would be obvious, right? This is not even your blood. This is a stepdaughter. It's not even your blood. Is asa. You'd have to tell me what erva of your bas bincha or bas bitcha. So you know what it's telling me, guys? It's not speaking about a woman that you took. It's your blood, but you weren't married to the woman. You raped a woman. and that woman had a daughter, and that daughter had a daughter. That daughter had a daughter. So this is Bas Bincha. This is the daughter, of your son. The son was a result of a rape. Or Bas Bitcha. Your daughter was the daughter of a rape. So your granddaughter from your son of a woman you raped, or Bas Bitcha, that a woman you raped, now, it doesn't say anything about the daughter itself. It's speaking about granddaughter. It's not speaking about what? Daughter. How do you know your daughter? Right? You can't tell me it's a Kal V'chaymer because you can't learn an Einish from a Kal V'chaymer, guys. Ein Mashirim min adin. You can't learn out a warning from a din, and you can't learn out what? You can't learn out a punishment from a din. In other words, guys, it will be obvious if your granddaughter is an erva, certainly your daughter is an erva. It's one step closer. It doesn't make sense the farther you get away to be less lenient. So if there's a punishment for a granddaughter, certainly it's a punishment for a daughter. But you can't learn that from a Kal V'chaymer. You'd have to know it from a pasuk. Where do I know it from? So this pasuk, guys, ascertains what? Your granddaughter from a woman that you were ma'anis, you raped a woman, is to you an erva heina. It says the word heina. What does it say by your own daughter, or a stepdaughter? Yud Zayin. Ervas ishu bita le'segala. It says heina. So just like over here, it says heina, right? And it says ishu bita. So it means a bas also. Ishu bita. So therefore, a daughter is asar. So too, a daughter me'anusasa is asar. So it's fascinating. The whole way we know that a daughter that you fathered as a result of an act of physical abuse to a woman that you fathered, you ma'anasar, the way we know it's asa to you is through a gezerah shava of heina heina. Over here it says heina, and it says a stepdaughter is asa. Ervas isha ubita, a woman and her daughter. This daughter is asa to you. This daughter is also asa to you. So the way you know daughter is through heina heina. How do you know the chiyuv is sreifa? So here it says zimahi. It says the lashon of zima, that what? That she is the lashon of zima, and it says taking a person, you take a woman and her daughter, zimayim, by yikra chaf. It says zimahi. So we have two gzerah shavas, heina heina, to create the isser of abita manusasa, your daughter from an act of rape. And we have Zima to teach me the punishment for that. The punishment for that is Sreifa. Not at all something that you know from the Torah proper. That is what? That is, now again, we can get to Masech Yavamis. We're going to go through that whole parsha. It's impossible to understand that parsha without the Torah Shabbat Peh. It's amazing. You read these psukim all the time, and you're not cognizant of how difficult they are unless you have the Torah Shabbat Sav, the Gemara, to explain. Anyway, let's do it inside now. Aroyos, Michtav Ksivi, the whole parsha of Aroyos. You have an extensive parsha, guys, in Yud Gimel, and the punishments in Yud Ches, in Parsha Zachrimos. When do you read it? Yom Kippur, we learned Yom Kippur by Mincha, right? We read this parsha Yom Kippur by Mincha, the parsha of Aroyos. We learned the Masechta Megillah. We saw a Tosfos because women come to shul and they miskashet, they fancy themselves up. So it's a reminder. So you needed to go ahead and teach me to learn out the halacha of a woman that you ma'anis. The loy ksiva, that's not written. Dama Rava, Amali Rabbi Yitzchak bar Avdimi, Asya Heina Heina, Asya Zima Zima. Now, obviously, the Gemara didn't go into the whole limud. I did it for you. There's a Rashi here that does it. But so again, what's the limud? It's you have your step granddaughter and your stepdaughter is asa, and your stepdaughter manusasa is asa, your step granddaughter, or no, daughter manusasa is granddaughter manusasa is asa. That's pasuk yud. Heina hema. So therefore, just like in pasuk yud zayin, a stepdaughter is asa. So too in yud, your daughter manusasa is asa. And zima teaches me that the punishment is sreifa, and that's not something you would have known. That's and the Mishnah concluded, Hein Gufei Torah. It says hani in, hanach lo, dafka these and not others. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Hein vehein gufei Torah. He had one word. Hein vehein elu ve'elu, not just the last ones that we spoke about, but elu ve'elu, everything is gufei Torah. Hajalecha hakol chayavim, hajalecha chayavim, hajalecha geshmaka perek called hakol chayavim. So now there's a introduction that what the next perek is fascinating because it doesn't apparently have anything to do with our Masechta. It doesn't. We mentioned arroyos, and therefore we're going to segue into arroyos and other things that you should teach a certain way. In other words, there are certain halachas that you can only teach in front of a certain amount of people for various reasons. Most of these halachas are very esoteric concepts that we will translate, and we'll give over opinions of the Rishonim as to what they are. And at the end of the day, they're all above my pay grade. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I could just go ahead and repeat it, but it's nothing. It's just words. So let's see. Ein darshin ba'aroyos. You can't darshin ba'aroyos in the Pasha of Aroyos. Pashtus, guys, Perek Yudches in Achremos, Bishloisha, among three. Rashi right away in the Mishnah says, guys, in Dorshin Bishloisha, Shnayim Behu. In other words, it's not one Rebbe teaching 3 Talmidim, it's one Rebbe teaching 2 Talmidim, and he's included in the number of 3. That's the Havamina of the Gemara. That will change. Rashi is explaining the Havamina, the Lashon of Bishloisha versus the Lashon of Lishloisha. Okay? So, Ein Doshim Aroyas Bishloisha, and we'll see why. V'loi b'maisa bereshis b'shnayim. Nor maisa bereshis, 2 people right now, him and someone else. What exactly maisa bereshis is, says Tosfos, Ein Doshim b'maisa bereshis, Pirush Rabbeinu Tam, Hu Shem Membeis Osios. That's the name, the tetragrammaton, the name, the 24 names of Kodesh Baruch Hu that holds 24 letters. Hayotzim Bereshis and with pasuk Shalachrav that you learn from Bereshis and the pasuk that follows. The Taisus Yontiv explains Taisus not to just they knew what the name was, but there was ways to use the name to affect certain things. That is, you can't teach other people unless they're 2 people. Pashtus. The Rambam has a whole different pshat over here. What this Maisa Bereshis is. The Rambam says, "Hainu hachokma hatfias." What does that mean? Again, these are words that I have no idea what they mean. Basically, they seem to be saying the idea of the yisaidus behind the creation of the world. The oilam of the world of the Galgalim, the worlds of souls. Very esoteric ideas. Rambam is much more esoteric than Tosfos. But basically, they're saying that these ways, perhaps, to go ahead and create things. There's a Rashi. Rashi learns, guys, in the Ein Yaakov. The Ein Yaakov, this has a Rashi on it. He says that you're not allowed to teach the Sefer HaYetzira. We've met before the concept of Hashem creating the world with oisias, using a dibur. So if one knows how to do that, he can't teach it unless there's other 2 people there, the way to create the world. So these are different ideas, are very, again, to me, very esoteric, removed. The Maisa Merkava of Yecheskel, that no one knows what's talking about. It's supposed to be the epitome of Limud, and we're going to see famous Gemara with Lozim and Aroch. Maisa Merkava b'Yachid. So now, guys, according to Rashi, here's the way you should read the Mishnah. Ein Doshim B'Aroyos B'Shloisha, meaning 2 people and the Rebbe. V'loi b'Maisa B'Reishis B'Shnayim, 1 person in the Rebbe. V'loi b'Mchorim B'Yachid, and no people. Right? That's what it's mashma. You're going down from 3 to 2 to 1, but the 3 meant 2 plus the Rebbe. The Shnayim meant 1 plus the Rebbe. So the Yachid means no one. You're not teaching anyone. And now it contradicts the statement we just said. If you're alone and you're not allowed to teach anyone, it says, but you could teach someone who has chachma and understands by himself. In one sentence, you told me you can't teach anybody. It means one person. And in the next statement, you're telling me, well, if he's a chacham, maybe midaito, who's able to understand, then you could teach him. So the Gemara has to go ahead and address that. It'll address it right away. Anyone who looks at the four things, very interesting lashon. The lashon, I would have said roi. They have a lashon of rotoi loi. Lashon of rotoi. And Rashi says, what does rotoi mean? He says that better that not he should have been born. Rashi says the lashon of rotoi, better not to have been born. What are the four things? What are the four things? Right? I don't know the lashon rotoi. Where was it? It's later on. That's why. Look at Rashi later on in the Mishnah. It goes down a little bit. Rotoi huloi toivi yafa hayaloi and loy baloilam. Better they not came to the world. V'oimani says Rashi lashon rachmanis, lashon of mercy. Klema meruchim hu and loy baloilam. It would have been merciful they had not come to the world. They're bothered by the lashon. You never saw the lashon in Shas of rotoi. I never saw it. As a matter of fact, when I was preparing the Mishnah, I read it through as roi. And then I looked back, I said, it must be a mistake. I looked at my Mishnayos said roi. And then I see Rashi had this girsa. So this girsa of rotoi means either better to have not been born, or it would have been more merciful that he had not been born. What are the four things? Mala, mata, what's above and what's below. So Rashi in the Mishnah says what's above the Chayas HaKodesh and what's below the Chayas HaKodesh. But in the Ein Yaakov he says what's below the Aretz. Ma'alafnim ma'ala'achar. Rashi says what's to the east, what's to the west. Look at Rashi. Ma'ala ma'ala merikia shal Rashi Chayos u'ma'ala mata mehen, and what's below them. Mashmas, you're still in the atmosphere. U'ma'alafnim. Chutz l'mechitzas harakia l'mizrach. What's lifnim in space? We're speaking that spatially. That's to the east. Umala achar l'mayrev. So Rashi is describing the Mishnah in terms of space. That don't think about lifnim, what's beyond the mechitza, the universe to the east and the west. And however, they interject in Rashi the word tosfos. Very fascinating. You usually don't see this. In Rashi, they interject the word tosfos, and he's going to prove that it doesn't mean spatially, but it means in terms of time, which is the way I learned it. Tosfos eni yachaliyos masha pirish hamoira. It can't be what the Rashi explains. Malif nim chutz l'mechitzas harakia u'mala achar l'mayriv. How do you know that? In the Parch Gemara, when the Gemara asks, Bishleim amala maila u'mala mata u'mala achar l'chai. Very good, above and below. And after, fine. Why can't you think about what was before? Whatever was. Fellas, so if you're thinking about in terms of, when the Gemara says, what was is not a space thing, it's a time thing. Historically, when something happens, the Gemara asks, what happened? So the Gemara always says, who cares what happened? It is what it is, right? Mada hava. That lashon is used in reference to time. It's not used in reference to space. So therefore, Tosa says, based upon the Gemara's question, it can't be speaking as Rashi says. It's speaking about lifnim to the east, spatially what's there. It must be speaking in a time manner. Again, guys, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I do understand in terms of east, west, north, south, and time and space, but beyond that, not. Alma malafnim is kaidim la'olam. You're not supposed to think about what came before the world. That's a time thing. Good. What will be ad kan tostos. So again, this is a very, very again. It's based upon Rashi. I'm really clueless. Based upon Tosfos, when you think about what's going to be before the world, what's going to be after the world, it's better to not have come to the world because it's going to lead you to go a little nuts. That's basically what it's telling you. It's going to lead you a little nuttiness. It's something that will not help you. It won't help your yahadus. Understanding what was or thinking about will be or what's going to be will not help your yahadus. Your yahadus, your Yiddishkeit will not be helped. Ki huzeh. Anyone who doesn't rachmanas on Hashem's covet That he not come to this world, or have mercy and that he didn't come to this world. Okay, a very strange Mishnah, right? Very strange Mishnah in the middle of Chagigah. We're dealing with only Gemara. We go from Nidarim to Kabbanis to this, and boom, it's amazing. The amount of the plethora of ideas that can be discussed in such a okay. Anyway, the beginning question. I set you up for it. Aroyas b'shloisha means what? Two aside from the Rebbe. Yeah, two aside from the Rebbe. Says the Gemara. Armit b'reisha v'loy b'merkava b'yachid. Now, meaning only who can learn the Ma'aser Merkava? Only one individual. That's how we started off. 3, 2, 1. Right? So the only an individual himself can learn it. V'hoda Armit. Then you speak about teaching. Well, if you're teaching, it's not a single individual. Unless he's a person who himself understands and can discern it with his own. We'll see what that means. So it's shver, it's difficult. You're telling me only one person? Mashma, you could teach it to someone who's capable. Says here's the way you read the Mishnah. Ein doshim ba'royes lishleisha. Guys, very, very fine nuance of a change. Go back to the Mishnah. Ein doshim ba'royes bishleisha. You don't dashim baroyas in the company of 3 people, in 3 people. How about ein dashim baroyas lishleisha? 2, 3 people. So how many people are there? There are 4 people. The Rebbe and another 3. A very little difference over here. So now let's go redo the Mishnah. Ein dashim baroyas lishleisha, 4 people. V'loy ma'aser bereishis b'shnayim, 3 people. V'loy b'merkava b'yachid, 2 people. Good. Now you have the Mishnah. Let's see the Gemara. You can't teach it to an individual. Then you could teach it to him. If he's that, you could teach it to him. My timer. What's the reason you can't teach the Parsha of Arayas to 3 people? So Pashtus, here's the Gemara. You're a Rebbe, the 3 Talmidim sitting in front of you, and you have get the Pashas Achrei most, you can't teach it to them. Why not? My timer. It says ish like sikr of the galas ervasa, mashma ish el kol she'er b'soroi. Ish is trey. She'er b'soroi is chad is 3. Vom rachmana like sikr of the galas erva. Don't go ahead and teach them. In other words, the pasuk, dashing the pasuk, and we're going to dash ish as 2 separate individuals that you can't teach them. Elameata dechsiv, when it says ish ki yikalo elakav le'aleinu, 2 men that they bench Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ish asher yitem mizaroi lemoilech, 2 men right give their kid over to the moilech, which is a type of avodah zara. Hachanami, you're going to say, why only 2 and not 1? But of course, if one person benches Hashem, if one person gives us the other month, you're chayiv. So you're going to darshan the ish as plural, then you have to darshan here as well. And over here as well, it makes no sense. So therefore, by Arayas, it also must make no sense. If over here ish can't mean 2 regarding the halacha of Meilech, regarding the halacha of being mevarich the shame, it's certainly also le'inyan giving it over to our pasha of Arayas that came in that. Elahanami boile. What do you need to dub the ish for? The Rabbi says Hanachrim to tell us Goyim are also our Musa. These are one of the Sheva Mrs. Meinoach, not to be Mevarich the shame and not to go ahead and be Oived Abayda Zara. Shemuzhar al Birchas Hashem al Abayda Zara ki Yisrael. The Gemara, so Hainami Miboile, I need the ish by the Pasha of Arayas. The Rabbi says Hanachrim, they're also what? Muzar in Arayas. Okay, therefore, back to the drawing board. How do you know what? Muzar al Arayas ki Yisrael. Back to the drawing board. How do you know that 3 people, you can't teach Arayas in the Parsha of 3 people? Elamid chsiv, ushmartem es mishmarti, you should watch my mishmeres, levilti asais michukos atayevos. The pasuk says, levilti asais michukos atayevos. The pasuk over here is describing, okay, now, ushmartem, trey, mishmarti, chad, 3, vam rachmana, levilti asais michukos atayevos. So we want to say, having failed using the pasuk of ish, we want to say it's a pasuk ushmartem es mishmarti. Those are 3, And then it says afterwards of arayos. So you can't teach three. When you say over there also, but of course only one person is warned about Shabbos, one person is warned about Kachim, one person is warned about mitzvahs. It can't mean over there dafka if you're two. El Amr Vashi, Mayin Dorshin Ba'arayis B'Shleisha. You know what it means? It doesn't mean you can't teach the parsha, guys. Ein Dorshin B'Sisrei Arayis. You can't go ahead and teach the hidden parts of Arayis. And it's not a pasuk, it's a svara. Now let's see what's the hidden parts of Arayis. Let's see Rashi. Sisrei Arayis. This would be very good with what we just did. Sheinim Mefurashais. They're not clear. Kigoin. Bitay Manusasai. Guys, anyone who's been listening to the share, would you tell me your daughter from a woman that you raped is clear? Heina, zima, you have to go ahead and first go make a gzera shava. It's not clear at all. That's sisrei arayos. That's a hidden part of arayos. Ve'im chamav, the mother of your father-in-law. Ve'im chamoso, the mother of your mother-in-law. The nafki mesechta Sanhedrin from a drasha. In other words, the arayos that are not so obvious, you should not be able to teach. You should not teach in front of three other people. Let's see Rabbeinu Chananel. He says Sisrei arayos kigoin ha'ara unashika. He's referring to the act of cohabitation of erva. In other words, we speak about erva being the complete bia, not hara, the beginning of the bia, or nashika, or the warnings of homosexuality. He speaks about things that are not so open. And Sisrei Torah. So he goes ahead. Those should not be taught what when there's three people. Now, why not? Listen, a fascinating reason. You can't teach it to three. Why is that? My timer, svarahu. It's not a pasuk. It's a total svara. What's the svara? Beitrei kiksiasve kame rabayu. When two people are sitting in front of their Rebbe. Chod shokol v'tori bahade Rabbi. One engages the Rebbe in a conversation. The idach and the other person that's there, matzlei oidnei, he inclines his ear, legamra, to go ahead and learn. When you have two people, so let's say the Rebbe and one will be conversing, the dialogue about Sisrei Arayos, this person's alone, he's going to go ahead and listen. Tilsa, if you have three people sitting, chad shakol v'tari bahade Rabbi, one will be conversing with the Rebbe, the Hanach Trey and the two remaining people, Shakli Vitori Bade Adadi, they won't be listening to the Rebbe. They're going to get into a conversation, a chavusha shaft of themselves. And they won't know what the Rebbe concluded. And they'll come to go ahead and mata arayos. Since this is misisri arayos, it's not so clear. If they wouldn't, let's say, for example, according to Rashi, they didn't listen clearly, and they wouldn't chap the gzera shava of what? Of heina, it's possible to say that what? That a daughter from an erva you'll be permitted to be with. You won't be mechayev misa, you won't be mechayev sreifa. However, if there's only two people, the one that is being mishach v'tayr, the other one is going to listen. So don't teach three the sisrei arayos, because it may lead to what? Two people not listening because they're dialoguing among themselves, and they'll miss the boat and they'll matter sisrei arayos. If you always have this concern that two people alone won't be listening to the Rebbe, call it Torah Nami, right? All the rest of the Torah should have the same problem, that people are not going to listen. And come on, arayos shiny, arayos are different. The Amar Gezel va'arayos nafshe michad masan, right? Umasav lehem. Gezel and arayos are two averis that people have a strong tie before. So if they're not listening and they have the taiva, they're subject to go ahead, Rod, and find a heter, because it's so, it's so desirous to them. So to be gezel. So the Gemara asks the obvious question. Gezel nami, gezel also, you should not be able to go ahead and learn the hilchas gezelis in front of three people. So arayos bein b'fanav bein shalei b'fanav nafish yitzra. Arayos is something that, whether the error is in front of you, not in front of you, it's something that grabs hold of the individual. Gezel b'fonav, when the gezel is in front of you, then nafish yitzrei. Shloi b'fonav loy nafish yitzrei. In other words, they both have taiva, but the level of taiva for aroyas is one up. So the dava of aroyas is before, not before. Therefore, you can't go ahead. When our Mishnah says, "Ein doshim b'aroyas," we're going to conclude the shir. So let's go back to the Mishnah and get the first din of the Mishnah. Ein darshin b'aroyas lish shloisha. You can't darshan the sisrei aroyas, the aroyas that you would not know now openly, or the ancillary parts of aroyas, such as hara, the beginning of relations, or neshika, kissing. All these you would not know. Without limud. Now, since it requires a limud, you're going to have one person teaching three people, and therefore, what are you worried about? When this person is conversing with the Rebbe, these two will be conversing themselves. If they're conversing themselves, they may come to matter because there's a taiva for it, and therefore, I only can do it in front of three people, the Rebbe and two others, because if the Rebbe is teaching these two, this one's going to be inclined to listen. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for listening.